Always a pleasure to talk to
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, this is potentially another flip-flop. I mean, it's not clear whether it's actually going to happen or not. We talked about it a few days ago when it was also mooted that this might be happening. It makes sense, or does it make sense, to go back on that policy?
Well, you're quite right. I'm no good at handbrake turns, but we are just about to go and see one quite soon. And it is inevitable. I mean, that lovely old line used to be from John Maynard Keynes, which was, if the facts change, I change. What are you going to do? Now, she's got an opportunity here, the rusty Chancellor, not so much Iron, I don't think, to actually sit there and say, look, things have changed radically. I've got a good excuse now to go back on these policies, particularly this one which were hitting elderly people with an allowance change like that is frankly pathetic. So there's so much more they can actually do. And remember, there is one word that runs an economy successfully, and most of Europe is useless at it, but where she's not showing much better, confidence. She has the ability to actually create confidence because we've got growth areas in this country, those tech companies to start with, we know full well. They can invest, not government investment, that's the last thing you want to see because they're rotten at actually investing in things themselves, but give the tax breaks in terms of like enterprise investment schemes to actually give people confidence and say, oh, well, I can invest in this company because I've got backup coming here as a guarantee in case it goes wrong and I get some of my money back. That creates confidence really quite quickly. We are a nation of entrepreneurs. We set up more businesses than France and Germany put together. But we're very bad at growing them. Get the confidence back. Oh, and by the way, on Monday, get rid of these things as well because they're making it in terms of people's pensions and their allowances. You've really made people thoroughly fed up with it. No way to try and actually get any populism in your government.
Well, yeah, a couple of things. I mean, as Benedict pointed out just now, I mean, we are incredibly, surprisingly, staggeringly doing slightly better than most of the EU at the moment. So why do we want to get back in bed with them? That was one point. And a lot of other people are pointing out, and do keep those messages coming in, it's like, this isn't because Labour are suddenly remembering what Labour are meant to do and care for the most vulnerable in society. It's because they got a bit of a spanking at the elections and they're thinking, oh, God, we want to win next time, so let's just go back on this.
Yeah, and put that together with this figure of 0.7 growth. Well, remember, these figures are very, very unreliable, but she's lucky that somehow we've got through some figures coming out, most of which is relating to previous decisions, not this one.
Yeah.
So beware of people talking about green shoots, because quite often it turns out to be advanced mould. And so look at actually where the growth is and encourage that. So this government has very little business experience, doesn't seem to have any finance experience, and of course the Treasury doesn't have the expertise it had 30 years ago where you were there for life. Now you're there for 3 years and you move on. Bright people, but actually really understanding how government can raise capital, raise investment without their borrowing limits and be able to get it into a much more positive element.
Justin, very, very quickly, do you think they should go back on this policy?
Yes. It's hurting people directly. The actual cost to the government is, in terms of finance, actually small. The big cost to the government is sheer embarrassment.
Yeah.
So if I were her, I'd be doing it. Or is it maybe we're just being softened up for maybe a change of chancellorship?
For joining me in the studio. Not been a good week for Keir Starmer, but this is the front page of the Iron newspaper today about the winter fuel payments in particular.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a flip-flop? And is that the right thing to do?
Well, I think when it comes to Keir Starmer these days, it's not a question of stopping the boats, it's stopping the votes that has an effect on him. And people showed in the local elections how disillusioned they were with Starmer and his mob. And so this is more a reflection of that than anything else. He has two problems. One is he hasn't got the money to withdraw it. It's an expensive thing to suddenly reinstate it. And he's also got other problems building on the horizon in terms of tax, and there's very little room for this. The government spending review, which is underway, is supposed to be announced, the details of that on the 11th of June, which is when I think this might come in, if he's going to do anything. But he has really got very, very little room to do this. And as usual, I suspect it'll end up, he'll tinker with it, claim it's a great change, and it'll mean actually very little to very few people, because everything the government is doing at the moment is actually not creating the growth he still seems to think is happening. I don't know where it is. He and Rachel Reeves must be the only two people in this country who think there's growth going on.
To be fair, we are doing slightly better than some countries in Europe, Germany being one of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in theory, it's not too bad. Talking of Europe, there's a big meeting happening tomorrow, isn't there?
Yeah, and on Monday.
On Monday.
In Lancaster House again. When, unfortunately, I think we're going to have because he's leaked it already in an interview with the Times this morning, he's going to give in to Europe. And as he's a fervent Remainer, he'll be delighted that this is basically creeping back into the EU. It's actually disgraceful to do this. It's very anti-democratic because we voted very clearly for Brexit and we didn't vote to go back into it. He's going to give up on the fishing rights. So the fishermen in this country, a great fishing industry.
Macron's been quite fierce on that one, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's demanded it.
Yeah.
So we're obviously going to give in to that. So apart from the farmers, who are also going to suffer again over the legislation he's going to agree to, and then we've got millions of people potentially on this so-called youth mobility. Incidentally, anyone who's up to the age of 30 is still called a youth in EU Parliament.
I'm just slightly past it.
And these millions of people coming over here when he's just said, I'm being tough on immigration. Again, one hand does one thing, one does the other. They don't know what they're doing. All he does is build a greater mess in every way. And if also we're now hearing on the spending review, because they're desperately trying to find ways of cutting expenditure without cutting back on paying the trade unions or our public service workers. So they're going to try and find something. And it's obviously the Department of Media, Culture and Sport is going to go. Because again, this government doesn't care at all about sport, the arts in any way. They're just going to dismiss it. And on an FA Cup weekend, when you're reminded what big business and how much football contributes to the economy of this country, shutting down the department that oversees that, I mean, that's another interesting move. It does mean, thankfully, the end of Lisa Nandy, hopefully, as a cabinet minister, because she's contributed absolutely zilch, and she just keeps being demoted and demoted. And finally, now I think they're going to get rid of her, which is fine. I mean, I'd like to see the end of all of them as soon as possible.
I thought you might say that.
Well, the damage they're doing is phenomenal. And I'm afraid, speaking as a pensioner, I don't think the winter fuel allowance will be restored to everyone as it should be. The very best we can hope for is a few people under a new means testing threshold qualifying for some sort of payment, but it won't be the full deal.
And they will make it even more complicated than it was in the first place.
Absolutely, because that's what they do. Tinker, tinker, tinker.
I just want to mention this to you. I mean, Keir Starmer would say, playing devil's advocate here, that polling by YouGov suggests that 57% of people in the country at the moment favour a closer relationship with the EU over America.
Yeah, no, well, we have a close relationship with the EU. They're still our biggest trading partner. We shouldn't forget that. But we're also looking at doing things, paying to join a European defence fund and start committing our forces into a sort of European army, which again is absolutely wrong. We're part of NATO. That's fine.
So NATO
we
does
don't
that
need
job,
to
doesn't
do
it?
this. But Europe, because they know we've got the second strongest force in Europe, Turkey is the strongest, but that's not, of course, a member of the EU either. They recognise they need us. We are giving in to everything. Starmer has no idea how to negotiate.
Just very, very quickly, Piers, we are running out of time. Just a quick yes or no. If Keir Starmer could take us back, undo Brexit and take us back into the EU tomorrow, would he do it?
I'm sure he would.
I thought you might say that. Piers Pottinger, a joy to see you. Thank you so much for your company this afternoon.
Pleasure.
What do you think about what you've heard,